Renu?
Hanji,
Good to go.
now?
You can see my
We
family.
can start. Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome, and a very Merry Christmas to all of you who've tuned in. This is Renu from Genius Kids. Thrilled to host the favorite show that I do every week, which is on Thursdays, right here on Radio Zindagi at 12 o'clock, called Voices. This is a show for the community and by the community. So we hope you're all going to join in, participate with us. We're being streamed live on Facebook, as well as, of course, on the radio. And feel free to call in if you have any questions at 510-657-1170. You can also post your questions and comments on Facebook. I know today's topic is close to many people's hearts. So when you do decide to post something, try and be a little polite with it when you're on Facebook, because I know people get a little carried away sometimes, but that's okay. Just keep it nice and clean. And remember, the panelists here, we're all here to express our own personal views and our own thoughts. Today, of course, what is the topic? We're going to be talking about the farmer protests that have started in India. They've taken basically the world by storm. And I want to, of course, begin by thanking Neeraj and Seba and Ira of Radio Zindagi for, again, giving us a platform to be able to discuss very critical, important issues that affect the community at large. I also want to begin by saying our show is a general discussion to educate many of you that probably don't comprehend what is happening, including myself. It is not a jab at politics. It's not a jab at religion. So please, we encourage clean participation, as I said, from all our listeners. And we do understand you're very passionate about the cause, but let's, of course, always remain respectful and not personal. Let's also remember that farming is not just a job for many, it's a way of life. And for most of us, when we look at soil, including myself, it looks just like dirt. But for a farmer, that's their livelihood and that's their hope. And farmers, what I consider, are magicians who produce food from the ground. So for all of those who've eaten today and are planning to eat for the rest of your life, you need to thank a farmer. So on that note, let's begin our show by introducing our amazing panelists. We'll begin in no particular order. I'm going to begin with Herbir. She's a community leader and a cultural commissioner for Santa Clara, and she's here to share her views on this. So welcome to the show, Herbir.
Thank you. So glad to be here. And may I introduce one of my interns with me? His name is
Absolutely.
Very actively involved in the community and very interested in this subject as well. So we've been attending calls together. So thank you for allowing him to be on here with us as well.
Sure. And could you repeat his name again?
Shivang.
Shivang. Okay. Welcome, Shivang. Nice to have young youths on our show. I assume you're young, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Soon to be 15. Okay.
15. Wonderful. I commend you for taking interest in a topic like this. Welcome to the show. And then, of course, we have Ragini Kaur. She's a Bay Area community organizer for the Jakara movement, and she'll be sharing with us shortly what that is all about. So welcome to the show, Ragini.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Then, of course, we have Sheena Soni. She's an advocate for the farmer rights, and she'll tell us a little bit more about herself. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Then, of course, we have a regular guest always on my show, Shobham Saxena, who's the editor for India Eye Digital and based in the beautiful Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, right, Renu. Thanks very much. And it's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, we have a fellow Dylan. So proud to introduce another Dylan, Amritpal Singh Dylan. He is here to basically talk about his own experience and how he feels about this. He is a businessman as well as an entrepreneur and a farmer who currently continues to have farming back in Punjab. So welcome to the show, Amritpal.
Sat Shri Akal.
Sat Shri Akal. Thank you so much. So, and again, for all the listeners who've just tuned in, don't forget to post your comments or questions on Facebook. It's being streamed live on Facebook, or you can give us a call at the studio at 510-657-1170. So, Herbir, I'm going to start with you. It's the 30th day of the protest. Could you tell us what are the farmers' demands? How did it get started? And what are the main points of the farmers? I mean, why is all of this happening?
So that's a really good question, Renuji. And I'll try to set the stage, and I know we got to keep it short, but I'll do my best to explain all this. This issue did not start today. It's very important to understand that this issue really has been a problem for India's farmers for almost, I think, 4 decades. And the truth is that this issue was at the heart of this issue, I would say, really is farming. More than 75% of the people in India are farmers. So that being said, the Green Revolution and competition in the world really created for India to keep up. And to keep up, they went into this, the pesticides, highly mutated seeds and things of that nature, causing a lot of farmers to seek new, let's just say, new materials and that included new costs, which came to them at very high prices. Now, they could barely keep up when they had to sell and compete with large corporations at that point already. Now, over these years, the farmers have been trying to fight back and say, look, we can't keep this up. You guys are taking advantage of us, et cetera. Now, that being said, it's come to a climax where 2 years ago, there were some rumblings that the government was going to work on some programs and initiatives. However, it went the other way. For the last 30 years, 40 to 50,000 farmers per state have been committing suicide because they cannot keep up with the issues. That tells you this is a very central problem for them. So in return, instead of improving those issues and helping them get better pricing, better access, reduce rates, because there are no subsidies in India, as you know, now they've actually gone to a different level of an issue under the auspices that this is better for the farmer because there's free trade. Well, that's not the way it works. Farming is based on land. Land is a limited commodity. And now if under land grab intentions by major corporations, they're saying that we are going to basically allow you to still have a minimum price, which is not the truth, but it'll be controlled by the federal government and the central government. And the central government wants to privatize it, but you cannot privatize a subject like farming. It has to stay publicly regulated. And so with that, they're trying to take away their rights to control the pricing, or let's just say the sales at their local state level, at their local village level, at the town levels. And they're trying to take away their opportunities to be able to refute this in any kind of, let's just say, public manner. So that's a simple way of saying basically they're trying to take the control away from the farmer and the states and centralize it under the privatization in angle. But we know corporations don't work to do anything but create profit. So if you do that, you're going to create a really great problem of livelihood for the farmers. So simply put, farmers depend on this, and the farmers, majority of the farmers under 80%, about 80% are small farmers who have 2 to 5 acres, and they cannot compete with corporations. And the intent is to take that control away from them. I hope that sums it up very quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know it's a topic that you could go on and on about. So thank you so much for summarizing that. So Sheena, that leads me to you. We've heard of 2 elderly farmers already who become martyrs during this ongoing protest. Where do you see this movement heading to in the next few days?
First of all, I do not know where that information has come from, that 2 farmers were martyred. It's more than 30 lives have been lost, you know. It is a very serious business. I'll be happy to share the info and the picture for them. In fact, there was a really esteemed Babaji who had a big following, and he committed suicide. And he was a very actualized person. So his suicide was probably conceived of from this notion that maybe nothing will come out of this movement, maybe the hopelessness of the farmers. Whatever drew him to commit that from a highly actualized person is very surprising. But you know what? The movement goes on, and the movement is heading towards other states following. There is Maharashtra had a big 5,000 people convoy yesterday, which has reached, and Rajasthan, and they'll be coming. There are people from Kerala, there's people from Tamil Nadu, people from Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh has been one place which has been screwed over by these farm acts. And that's like your standard and your benchmark for how things are going to go for when in the northern states, this Farm Act laws, and why are they affected? So because right now their mandis did not show any profits at all. The pretty much like only 47 mandis have something, and it's just like a big report and a lot of statistical analysis. And I'd be happy to share all that info on your Facebook page. But that is something which is on their Gram Udyog site. It is the government site which shows that the mandis had no profit. So that is where we will head to when the farmers say that. That is not something a hearsay or in their mind story. That is what has happened before it is in front of them, you know. So this movement is getting bigger. This movement, where it is headed to, neither I know, neither you know. It's the people who are the leaders of the Kisan Ekta movement, and they reiterate over and over again that we're the voice, we're the ones who are talking, we're ready to talk, but we want to get the laws repealed. That's their stand, because whatever they have offered them is not what to their liking. It is not to their liking at all. So the clauses, I'm like, if you're going to remove the MSP or fix the MSP for 2 things, what about the other things, you know? And what about the other states coming and selling in there? And what about the overproduction? There's a lot of ecosystem questions which should have been established before the bills became the act. And that has not been the case, you know? So this is the reason where we need to not predict, we need to go along and we need to support them and support it in a more purist form. This is in history, this is one movement which has started off as a people's movement. No matter what anybody says, it's a people's movement, and it is going on. How long does it go on? We will all see that. This will all unfold in front of us, you know? Yeah.
Thank you for that. So Ragini, I know you're with Jakara. There's a huge support pouring, not just from India, but from all over the world. Please tell us, how is the Jakara movement involved in supporting the farmers?
Yeah, absolutely. The Jakara movement helped organize with a lot of other Punjabi organizations one of the largest rallies, if not the largest rallies in the Sikh American history on December 5th in the Bay Area. And it received international press coverage and sparked a drive for COVID-safe car rallies. We know that these rallies that we're planning will continue. So we're planning new initiatives, forums, discussions to keep the momentum building. We've also spoken with Congress members who have written letters questioning the conduct of these bills. So there's a lot more happening. New ideas are emerging. We're talking to community members. So there's going to be a lot more in the future.
Thank you for that. And if you could also share the website for Jakara, I think you posted it here. Jakara is spelled JAKARA.org. For those who are interested, definitely if you want to check them out during the show, it's jakara.org and /about if you go to that page. So this leads me to Shobham. As we speak, there are probably maybe 20,000 or more people en route to support the farm laws. What does the government stand in this issue, and why are they so opposed to these protests?
Reina, the situation is ironical because both the farmers want a better wages, better living conditions, and the government is saying we are trying to give you also better wages, but still they can't agree on how to go about it. In the past 1 month or so, we have seen the government and the Kisan groups talking and discussing the bill and what can be changed in that. This should have been done before the bills were brought into parliament. You bring such important bills which are going to have impact on the majority of the population of the country for years to come, for decades to come, and there was basically no discussion. And with the farmers group, with the people who run mandis, and also there was hardly any discussion in the parliament itself. I think the bills were passed in like 2 or 3 days, even 2 days, and they became a law. And so because there was no discussion, I think there's a complete lack of trust between the farmers and the government. So when the government says that we are trying to get you better wages, we're trying to improve your conditions, the farmers don't believe it. And you have to also remember that the government is trying to bring India's big corporates into farming industry, in the farming sector. The Indian farmer is not ready to deal with the big corporates. No, there's a system, there's a mandi system, which has been in a functioning for years, for decades. They're very used to that system. They're very comfortable with that system. Even if they're not very happy with the wages, they're not very happy with the income. I mean, Indian agriculture has been in a big crisis for years, for decades, as Harbir said. But still, I think when you bring the corporates, the farmers have a reason to be apprehensive about it, And since there was no discussion prior to the bills were brought in, I think that suspicion has become even deeper. So I think a lot of discussion is needed, and open and transparent discussion is needed. And if the government wants to bring this kind of changes, they have to convince the farmers that it is in there for the benefit. I think which is a very, very hard task to do at this moment.
Thank you. So Amritpal, I'll be coming to Harbir in a few minutes, but Amritpal, I have a question. How have you been personally impacted by this? I know you're based in the US, but you're also from India and you're still in farming. Could you tell us a little bit about what your views are and how have you been personally impacted?
Personally impact as far as family goes, we every village, they're there. I don't know any part of my family there, which it could be my mom's side family or my father's side family. From every village, there's trolleys there. You know, if there's 20 people there from every village, 10 go and 10 come back, and 10 more go. So and we're supporting them. And as far as you know, personal impact, it's a huge impact on day-to-day life. You have to understand, we're so connected to farming, especially in Punjab and Haryana and UP, that we are embedded. This farming is embedded into us, into our lifestyles, into the way we live, into the way we look at life. And this is pretty much changing everything, not just there, for here also. Just like you know, Jakara, I would like to thank Herbir. They did such an amazing job putting everything together on December 5th. And you know, Ragini, not Herbir. Okay, sorry.
Ragini is from Jakarta.
Ragini,
Yes.
sorry. So, you know, the way they organized everything, it was just amazing. And my life is impacted the same way Ragini's life is impacted, or Sheena's life is impacted. We're all working for the same cause. You know, everybody wants to pitch in and help in. And it's not something that we plan to do, but this is who we are. And this is who we are. And that's how it is impacting us.
Thank you for that. I actually did a little bit of research today, thanks to Google, of course, and more than half of India's working population comes from the agricultural sector, for those who don't know. And this was from a recent census in 2001. And from 2018 to 2019, the average Indian farmer earned $140 per month, according to data from the Hindustan Times analysis. Of these, 263.1 million workers mainly solely rely on farming to put food on their own table and roof over their heads. So moving back to Herbir. Herbir, I know you wanted to share some comments on some other questions I had. And for all my panelists, if I do ask a question you want to add on to it, please feel free to do so. Back to you, Herbir.
So there's something you talked about, the martyrs. I think you brought up something that we need to really focus on, which is the human element of this issue. It started out with the farmers' protests, but it really is about the people, because at the end of the day, the food comes from these farmers. And if the corporations take over in India, and we're not talking about, this is not the software industry where you need a private sector to allow for the capitalism to come in and do competition. That's not what we need in the subject here. This is a very different subject. What will happen is that people will end up paying exorbitant prices, because there will be control by the very few corporations that will have access to all the farms and all the goods that are made or come out of those farms. Mm-hmm. That's where the problem is, and that's really important. I want to keep simplifying it to these things so people realize this is the impact. The other aspect of the people element that's really important here, you talked about martyrs. These families have been away from their homes, not only just from the 30 days. This fight has been going on actually for months. They've been trying different things, different ways to access the government, trying very, very much so to get their attention and take these laws back, but they're not. Now imagine these families are away from their homes, where they have no other livelihood. Who is to go and fend for those families? So it's really important to start thinking at the individual and the human level, mm-hmm. what kind of protest this is, and at the same time, how beautiful it is that it's a peaceful protest. This could have turned really ugly. This is not a Punjab issue. This is not a Haryana issue. This is an India issue. And more than that, it's going to be a global issue, because our state, United States, is one of the biggest importers mm-hmm. of rice, of wheat, of spices from this country. If anybody that's watching opens up your cabinets, you will see at least half of those things that are in your cabinets in terms of, either starch-based or spice-based coming from India. So I can't bring this back enough to say this has to become a people's movement, and we have to look at the long-term challenges that this brings, not the short-term sounds of, hey, we're trying to increase your wages. Oh, hey, we're trying to create, give you access to more corporates to sell your products to. That's all false.
Thank you. So my next question, continuing with you, Herbir, is with the government not changing its stance, are the farmers and other protesters in a position to continue the protest? And if so, what could possibly be the next legal options for the movement, if any?
So that's a great question. Actually, they have openly and publicly stated they will stay there as long as needed. There is no end to this in sight at the moment. Until Modi and the government change their plans and reverse these bills, this is not going to stop. And secondly, not only are the current protesters going to stay, as Sheena just mentioned, there are protesters coming from all over. Tamil Nadu, we've had some people from Tamil Nadu come up and say, look, we're going to start the protests with you. And they're actually holding local rallies, and they have started. So we have, I'm sorry. Oops. Okay, so we have right now Rajasthan, UP, Maharashtra, we have Haryana, we have Gujarat, we have Tamil Nadu, we have more and more states joining every single day. And I wanted to just remind on one element that you just mentioned, Renu, about the cost or what they make of, what's a livelihood. The similar attempt happened to Bihar around 2006. And studies showed by 2015, they are at the bottom of the list when it comes to per family's income from farming, because the control was taken away from those mandis. So we have seen now that this is truly a people's issue, and Bihar is a prime example of the result if we let them do what they're doing today. And go ahead, Chirag, he wants to add some things as well.
Sure.
I think that it's imperative for the government to listen to what these farmers have to say, because as everyone was saying on the panel earlier, that farmers do constitute a largest portion of India's population. And you can see the political ramifications as they are the largest voter base. So if you think about it from a purely political perspective, you can see very clearly where the lines are being drawn. Like, I don't like the fact that politics is involved in this protest, but we cannot ignore that. We can't ignore how the government is digging its heels in and refusing to negotiate because of the upcoming elections in West Bengal, for example, where the BJP really wants to gain seats.
So with that, I think the legal element that we just want to close up on that is that they have the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court. Okay, and the Supreme Court has shown, let's just say support in the softer sense. However, the farmers don't want to go to that route, because they know once they go down that route, it'll be in the courts for 2 years, and this case would have been lost.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to all our listeners. It's wonderful to read some of the support that's coming in on our Facebook page. And for those who've just tuned in, you're listening to Voices. And today's very critical topic is the farmers' protest. And again, thank you to Raju Zindagi for giving us this platform. Jeevan Zuchi writes, a very important topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Baljinder Singh writes, very important. Thank you, guys. God bless you guys. Thank you for your support. Keep having those comments coming in. We have another comment from Jaspir Singh Bhatia. I'm going to read this. The agitation, though, is spearheaded by farmers, but it concerns the entire population. Everyone needs food, and if food prices can be manipulated by the rich corporations, then everybody is affected, including small businesses who deal with food distribution. It needs to be a people's agitation against powerful corporations. It may suit Western countries, but not for India. Thank you for that, and keep having your comments coming in, your thoughts, whether they're in favor of the farmers' protest or against it. We're very happy to read it. And thanks, Jas, for again supporting us. Jas Olic writes, thank you for bringing up this important issue. Moving on, Sheena, do you think the issue, we already know it is being wrong word for me with too many little vowels in here, being made political by the ruling party and the opposition. And what are your thoughts on that?
Everything in India and everything in America too always becomes political. Ista banda hai, uska banda hai, ida banda hai, oda banda hai. It's all this. You're Democrat, you're Republican, you're this, you're this. There is no middle of the line. There is no farmer, there is no labor, there's nothing. So first of all, political power, if you're in power, you're going to make decisions to benefit people who made you powerful. Okay, it could be a controversial statement, but that's the law of the land. We see it all to the thing, nothing to this thing. The thing is, when you're in a democratic country, those laws have to be discussed and they have to be passed and they have to be made. And those jathebandis were being talked, for the Kisan movement for about 4 years. Now the new war was coming. and the protest, but nobody listened to them. So none of the political parties assisted them in helping them in coming to this point, you know. So basically, they've been fighting. They've been like, okay, let's look at the state. Let's look at this political party. So what has Kisan movement done now? The Kisan movement has said, don't come to us. We don't need the political leaders. They have, in fact, told other opposition leaders, please don't come. Please don't contaminate our movement. Now is the time of survival for them. When it hits them that nobody is helping us, we have stopped the railway in Punjab, but Punjab is not shown everywhere in India at all. Nobody knows the farmers were at protest for 2 months. There was a big agitation in San Francisco Consulate about a month and a half, 2 months back. It didn't make press. When Jakarta called one thing, people showed up. There were 12,000 cars. It was kudos to them. They were like the first ones to get in there and say, yes, let's do something about it. I was there. We supported them, you know. So what I'm saying is that movements have a time and movements have a place. When you try to politicize them later on, because now it has become a big movement, now you look good because now you're an opportunist, because you're going to be attached to this movement. You're either going to make some brownie points or you're going to make some brownie points being in opposition. So that is all noise. To me, that is all noise. If you're a truly farmer advocate, you're a farmer, you're true Indian whose backbone is a socialist democracy and has never been a crony capitalization, whose backbone, whose system is based on Panchayat Raj. The Constitution tells you the Panchayat or the Sarpanch or the Gram Sabha, or that whole system has more power than Supreme Court. You bypass all of that. You bypass the RTI system. You crush everything and slowly said, let's come up with these things. Does it make sense to you? We're going to do this. It is good for the farmers. If those farmers are saying it is not good for us, 80-year-old men who have passed away, who are going to pass away, it sounds very rude, but they are going to be there and they're there. The women, right now, I found out I tried to help one organization get the toilets over there, you know, in India, because at Tikri border, the women are going to the loo in the forest, you know, in the farmland. The sanitation conditions are so bad. All you're seeing is, all the media likes to show is the burfi being made there. The burfi is not the be all and end all of their existence. The burfi is cheap as ass to make. It is a very cheap food. Pakore are very cheap. You know, they're making it because they're surviving it. It is cold. They have to eat something. United States is helping a lot. Khalsa Aid is helping out. Kudos to those organizations who've been consistently there for so many days. And there are other smaller organizations and medical camps and clinics. It is not one person's movement. It is many people involved. Many people, I'm sitting in my home and making judgments, but like all nights are gone. My kid has a surgery. I can't pay attention to her because her mind is back home. We lost in 1947 everything. All our farms were gone. When in 1947, when we moved to Punjab, and I'm from Patiala, everything was lost. This is the second 1947 happening in your own country. Mm-hmm. And the governments need to realize that they are right now stuck at this and that in opposition. It's not the game of that. It is the game of heart. You have disowned your own people who are rightfully protesting, who have the right to protest. You should be giving them common, decent toilets or areas to do the protest. This should make you look good in the international media. Nobody's picking that up. That needs to be picked up. And I'm glad for this platform. Thank you for Neeraj and you guys, and it to get us on there to talk about this freely. It is not one side or I'm from this and I'm from this party. It is about we all need to work together if we really want the better for the farmers. So, ye kyo nahi le lete, wo kyo nahi le lete, addendum kyo nahi le lete. It is all garbage because the farmers need to know what works right for them. They're not stupid. Give them, they've worked in those lands. Those ladies have worked in the lands. They know how to grow stuff. They've been in very harsh conditions. Okay.
Thank
So
you,
for
Sheila.
that to lead,
I can feel your
Thank you.
passion oozing through the screen. It's wonderful.
It's not about passion. It's not about
Yeah,
my
it's the
2
right.
minutes
Yeah, I
saying
understand.
using the farmers. It is about
Yeah.
them. It's
Yes.
all about them. Yeah.
Amrit, I know you wanted to make a comment on this. Go ahead, please, Amrit.
I know Sheena ji mentioned regarding 1947, a lot of Punjabis and Haryanvis, they lost their land. And that alone scares the fact that now this is possible, this can be made possible again through a legal loophole. These bills, that there's a huge trust issue. There's a huge trust issue. And the reason for for example, the names of these bills to read are just by themselves scary to a farmer. I'm going to read them right now. Farmers produce trade and commerce bracket promotion and facilitation bill 2020. To farmers, it's called Mandi bill. It's that simple. It's they can try to stretch it as much as they want, but the fact is that's a Mandi bill. The second one, farmers empowerment and whatever word is, I can't even read it. And agreement of price and crazy words. As a farmer, I can't even. A lot of the farmers can't even. And to us, that's a contract farming. It's that simple. And they made these bills in such a way. They passed these bills in such a way. The manner they went through, just by a voice vote. And when Corona is all over the place, you're telling to lock down everything. And now to point out on Sheena G's point, that everything is scary. Just and these people from Haryana and Punjab, they're scared. They still can't forget 1947.
Correct.
Because a lot of my family came from Pakistan, and we were close. Our land was close to Sialkot, and we lost a lot of it. And now we're back to the same point again. These corporations can come in and, eventually 10, 15, 20 years take over these farms. And that whole thing is scary. And I'm glad she brought up that 1947. It's very relevant.
So this leads me to my question to you, Shobham. How do you think media, I'm sure the answer is going to be yes, and maybe you could expand on that. How is media contaminating this whole protest?
Yeah, I before talking about media, Renu, I'll like to, because some of my fellow panelists refer to 1947. I'll try to put this in a bit of a historical context. When the British came to India, India's contribution to global GDP was 25%. India and China controlled 50% of the global GDP, and India was basically an agrarian economy. So everything, your food, your cotton, your clothes, everything came from the land. So, but when the British left India in 1947, that percentage had come down to 2%. Such a huge decline. And who bore the brunt of the British colonization in India was the Indian countryside, the Indian farmers. And after independence, the whole focus of the Indian governments after they abolished the Zamindari system was to increase productivity, because the famine was a very, very big challenge. And the Indian farmers, they really contributed in a big way to the Indian economy. So till the 1980s and early 90s, the Indian agriculture contributed more than 50% of the Indian GDP came from agriculture. In 91, when India started reforms and liberalization, it began to change. Today, agriculture contributes less than 20% of Indian GDP. Most of Indian GDP today comes from the services sector, from IT, from pharmacy, other sectors. So there is a crisis in Indian agriculture. Since early 90s, more than 15 to 20 million farmers have left agriculture, migrating to cities, driving auto rickshaws, taxis, or going out of the country, paying huge amount of money to middlemen to get out of the country. Especially in Punjab and Haryana, it's a very, very serious problem. So there is a crisis in Indian agriculture. The wages are not increasing. They have been frozen for years. The land doesn't increase, the land remains static, but the size of the family has increased tremendously. So there's a crisis there, and it needs a reform. There's no doubt about it. The question is how to go about it, and how do we do in consultation with the farmer. So that is the point I wanted to make. There's no doubt Indian agriculture needs major reforms. Yeah. Indian media scene, I mean, we have had discussion before. It's really shameful. They instead of doing an honest debate and discussion about about any situation, any problem, we've seen this before in all the cases, they take a position and they do what is called character assassination. There's a disinformation campaign, there's a misinformation campaign. I think they have specialized now in what is called muddying the water. You bring other issues, and so the general public, the audience in general, are distracted from the main issue. And so the main issue takes a back seat, and then you start talking about something else. Because Indian media today, what they do is basically create noise. There's so much noise, the debate is lost. There's no honest discussion, and and this is just pure noise. So especially television. As far as the print media is concerned, or some independent websites are concerned, they are doing a decent job. At least they're reporting what's happening on the ground. But television in India is really, really shameful. Their behavior has been, like in many other cases we have seen before.
Thank you. Thank you for that. In actual fact, I'll read a comment by Jeevan. Jeevan has just mentioned that talking about 1947, my father as a young man lost all his land in Kashmir under the disguise of Land to Tillers Act. I know firsthand how farmers have been suffering. Jasbir writes, sadly, the government is trying to use the same age-old tactics to divide the people by using religion and cheap politics. Enough is enough, farmers and supporters moving from all across India. So that leads me to Ragini. Ragini, my question to you is, how can people in the US show their solidarity with the farmers? And what do you think should be done to help bring justice? And what is JACARA going to do?
First thing is just to get involved locally. Right now, everybody wants to mobilize for an action. We love the spirit, but if we want to build power, whether it's to help Kisan or Mazdoor in India, or even fight against white supremacy or Hindutva in the US, we must be organized. Mobilization is only as successful if we are organized and have people, organized people will have power, will be building power. Disorganized are going to stay confused. Ultimately, this is the battle for the soul of India. We have on one side, it's corporations and the government who will sell the country. And on the other side, you have the Aam person, a Kisan, a Mazdoor, and Aurat that are being waged in Delhi. If there is a Begumpura today, you can see that it's on the borders, on the Sarhad of Delhi. We know that in US, our ability is small, but we are still continuing to organize to send Hosna, build courage, power and unity here for our farmers, and work in any way to amplify their voices.
Thank you. Moving back to you, Herbir, I know you wanted to mention a couple of comments on my previous questions. Go ahead.
So I'm going to try to attack these a little separately. So first thing comes to the question of trust, and why was this decided without the consultation of the people who are themselves going to be affected? So that is the crux, and that's what Shobhan was speaking about in terms of the trust issue today. The reality is that this was done around June. These people met, they decided all these things. However, it was done in a accelerated manner without engaging the population that is mostly affected. So when we think about creating new laws that affect society, you think that there are going to be discussions with that. United States is a prime example where the people have spoken and they have shown the governments cannot take actions without engaging them. Now, I'm going to now move to that part that now that they did this in secret without any engagement of any farmers whatsoever, to support the corporate sectors, to support a couple of the corporates. I don't want to get in their names because I don't want this to become about them. The truth is, we already know it was never about the farming. It was about export, import, and the business of creating, the profits from export, import. It was never about the people. It was never about the farmers. So right there is the crux of the trust issue. Why would you not consult them? Now, that being said, we have seen this movement get bigger and bigger and stay peaceful for more than 30 days, as you said. So we saw a group of individuals come together. Many groups have come together on calling themselves different names, but one that is local that I can speak to from Punjab is the Kisan Ekta Morcha. They have self-organized and done it so beautifully that they have shocked the government, because they never expected that these farmers, who are often considered just illiterate, dumb, don't understand politics, don't understand organizing, and don't know how to work together, shocked them, because now they have self-organized. And they have selected people who understand the subject of farming very deeply. Yesterday, there was a this morning, our early morning, was an excellent call with a press conference with about 5 or 6 different individuals from Haryana and Punjab. There was a lawyer, there was an expert on farming, there were farmers, and there are farmers who have been, it's in the history, the farmers in their history, they speak English, they speak Hindi, they speak Punjabi, and other languages. These are not things were expected by the government, that you have such an intelligent movement on the ground. Now they've gone to the next level after Facebook removed their Facebook group of over 250,000 people. They here and abroad have actually protested, and Facebook has put them back up. The group is called, Kisan Ekta Morcha on Facebook. But more than that, they've started their own IT group. Now, who would thought for farmers are going to start their own IT group? Lawyers are there, IT specialists are there, doctors are there. They've started setting up their own hospitals. They're running their own digital media campaigns, and they've got their own lawyers. This is a huge step when it comes to organizing, as Ragini was talking about. So I wanted to point that out. And then finally, I want to bring this back to about the protests. This is a people's protest, and we have to remember that. You asked, Shobhanji, that was this a political move? What is the intention of this? They're calling this various things. Hey, this is the opposition speaking against Modi. This is a Khalistan movement. This is, China interfering. This is Pakistan interfering. Those are all to deflect the real issue. The real issue is this is about food. And if there are no farmers who can do this, and individual farmers, and it becomes, privatized, it affects us in the future, because they can maintain and hold unlimited amount of storage of crops. They can hold peas for years. And that is what Amritpal was talking about in terms of it's called the Essentials Commodities Act. There are no laws written in that act that prevent corporates from holding on to grain, to vegetables at an unlimited amount. They can stock it up as long as they want to, and they can sell it for whatever price they want to. So I want to bring you back to that eventually affects the people. And this is why I'm changing this from a farmer's protest to a people's protest.
Thank you for that. So we have about a few more minutes before we wrap up our show. And I know, again, it's, everyone has a lot to say. So I'm going to start with our closing statements right here. Thanks, Jasbir and Jeevan, for participating so actively in our discussion. Of course, Jeevan says we need factual reporting. And Jasbir has mentioned the issue of farmer suicide is not out of context. Farmers are not paid fair prices, which I totally agree. I mean, I was shocked to read $140 a month. I mean, you can't even buy a pair of shoes here for that. They are burdened with debt. Money lenders are charging insanely high interest rates, which farmers cannot pay. And for all those who are listening into the show, I definitely know we're going to have a sequel to the show. This 1 hour was not enough. And for someone like myself, that's not from Punjab, living here in the US from Kenya, I was totally ignorant of all this. And this has been probably more educational for me to understand what's going on. So I really thank the panelists for all of that. So moving on to you, Sheena, what would you like to say in closing? Everybody can have a couple of minutes because we wrap up at 1 o'clock. What do you have? I know everybody's so passionate. What do you have in closing, and what's your next step?
Nothing. Well, thank you so much for doing such a great job moderating. Herbie's a great friend. Ragini is a great friend. Amrit's a great friend, and nice to meet you, Shobhan, so fellow panelists. What I want to say is, it was not about me, so I didn't introduce myself, because it is about farmers. So let's just keep it to the farmers. A lot of people know me in the Valley, so I'll just leave it to that,
No, I'd like to. Tell me a few lines
I'll talk to you later about that. So we have been working. Today it's about farmers. So what we first did was being organized, got all the factions in the Bay Area and outside, and Amritpal is involved with that in my team. In our team, we work together, and a bunch of us, we organized few rallies to get the point across. And in Union City, there was a big rally. And then Jakarta was a big rally. And then with Amritsar, we got all the NRIs on one platform. Everybody, we didn't care who they belonged to. We got them on the platform to just brainstorm. Then we started a Tractor to Twitter kind of campaign, which we got like people from India who just got on board and just started tweeting, because national media wasn't showing anything on the ground. And all those pictures you see with, like the hardships and the thing, those were all mobilized by that. They are working with the IT cell was developed by Kisan Ekta Morcha. So just Harveer, the Kisan Ekta Morcha is the only valid Kisan. There are like 30 of them. They're their platform. It is their political or public platform, which is an IT platform run by the Kisans, like the farmers. So we follow them now, so whatever they want, we get their information, what they want to do, So just to keep the politics away from the situation. So it's very important to establish that, and the spelling is KISANEKTAMORCHA. It's very important so people stay away from the fake pages, to get the right information. So that is one point. So we did many other things. We've been brainstorming how to help this movement, because Punjab agriculture did have issues before. There were a lot of farmer suicides, and we have been involved in many other platforms before this to help the Punjabis, and many people helping out, many people. And the discontentment with the central government is because demonetization did not lead to a higher GDP, It came with a lot of promises. So when you come up with all these promises, you've done all these things before, and you say, oh no, you see the results and the results are not there. The Indian GDP is low. I mean, it could be blamed on Corona, but the thing is, I think the farmer protest is helping the economy a little bit, because you see small laborers are working, they're cleaning up. There are the blankets being bought from the local factories in Ludhiana, which is 300 rupees. There's food. There's a lot of lot of local people who are very poor at the borders are just having a ball there and eating in the same Sarbat Pala Langar. I want to say that ownership of food for a Sikh is nothing. We do believe in Sarbat Pala, and we are doing it with modesty. And I don't want to take that away from them. That thing is just completely modest, completely like, this is what we do. We do it all the time. We're consistent with it. Kerala floods happened, they were there, Yes. So those are the points I want people to register this, in their mind and not forget them. When they sit in their drawing rooms or their little living rooms and discuss and criticize, oh my God, Congress, yay, this, that. You want to not forget that these farmers have an agenda, and their agenda is the survival. And for us Punjabis living as NRIs, what is it? Our culture, our heritage, or everything. It's like Kenya farms. When you go back to Kenya, there is a certain diaspora there, you work and you look forward to, So when you leave your culture, your Punjabiyat, are we left for only singing Punjabi songs and dancing to Diljit Dosanjh? By the way, he's been great. I know you were in his song. I recognize you, And when I get off the phone call, I'll remind you when we talked 20 years back, And then, but the thing is that those are the things people need to register, that it is not, like I talked to a lady in our University Rally, people from all over, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, everybody were representing. And then this lady from Bihar said, nahi, hum bhi aate hain, hum bhi jantar mantar jaate hain, lekin hamare log nahi itne hote. It's like we do not have that many people to show the protest, but we have been suffering. We have been coming to protest. The media never picks it up. So just saying that nobody has a problem, only Punjab, Haryana, and UP have a problem, is not a fair statement. We need to dig deep into this draconian laws, and the government needs to work, because it will actually score them brownie points. It will actually, if politics is in play, BJP will come ahead if they listen to this farmers movement, because a lot of people are supporting them. If they're not supporting by the lips, they're supporting them in their heart, because there is no farmer, there is no food. That's all.
Thank you, Sheena. Now I'm trying to figure out how I know you. I'll
talk about it later.
I think I already recognize you. Ragini, what's next for Jakarta so that people know how they can come in and support you?
Yeah, definitely. I shared previously, we've been in touch with Congress members, local officials. We're also building coalition with other communities like Mexicans, Filipinos, and other groups that understand agriculture. Just keep in touch with us at Jakarta Movement on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We post everything on our social media platforms. We're planning a big launch with Rupi Kaur as well. And if you have not read her op-ed on Washington Post, please do so. She explains this whole situation amazingly. Yes. And if you want to get involved locally, you can go to jakarta.org/volunteer if you want to be involved in this movement. But yeah, follow us on Jakarta Movement anywhere on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we're sharing what other organizations are doing, and we're also sharing other things as well. I believe at 2 p.m. there's also going to be a community and discussion forum that was discussed and led by one of the community members. So we're just trying to help bring the community together and amplify the voices. So join our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
We just want to thank our local constituents also who've been supporting the farmers movement. We've been reaching out. There's a group of women here who've been reaching out to them too, along with partnering with Jakarta also.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Shobham, there's a growing dissent against the government, which is believed to be working for capitalists and not the farmer community. How true is that? As someone active in, in journalism, how true is that? If you could close with that.
See, if you look at India till the mid 1980s and early 90s, India is still a socialist country, but we had a very strong public sector, a government-controlled economy. That began to change in 1991 when economic reforms started, and then it has, 35 years, Indian economy has completely changed. It's now a market economy completely. India didn't have many billionaires in 1990. Now India has one of the largest billionaires in the world. So when the government says they're giving the farmers an option to go to market directly and sell their produce, it may sound like a fair argument, right? Because if everyone is allowed to deal with the market directly, why not farmers? But when you look at the reality of Indian agriculture, the farmers are not able to even sell the produce for minimum support price. I come from UP, western part of UP, and the farmers, they burn the sugarcane crop every year because they're not able to sell it. There have been cases of farmers throwing the produce on the streets, on the road because they're not able to sell. So the reality is they're not even able to sell at the price which they invest in the agriculture. So in that kind of situation, when you bring in big corporates and say, okay, you deal with them directly, the Indian farmer can't do. A marginal farmer in Bihar cannot deal with the big corporate. See, the tragedy of Indian agriculture is that the farmers, they produce, but they have no control over the supply chain.
Correct.
Once they've produced a crop, they go to mandi, sell it, and a packet of potato chips in India costs about 30 rupees, 25 rupees. And is more than the price of the 1 kilogram of potatoes, actually. So someone is making a lot of money there. So I think, as you were talking about what's the way forward, if they can start thinking in terms of forming cooperatives or having some kind of control and contribution in the supply chain, not just produce it, but also sell it. Because Indian farmers dealing with big corporates, I don't think that's going to work very well for the farmers and for the country.
Thank you. Amritpal?
Yes. So this Morcha, Kisan Morcha, as Sheena ji mentioned and everybody else mentioned, it's not just about farmers. Let's get over that. Let's get past that. A common Indian citizen, they pay income tax, then they pay service tax, and then they pay GST now. And after all of the income tax, there is an indirect tax. And after that, they squeeze in to have a life. So after these farm laws are passed, they're going to squeeze that life even smaller. And the way that it's going to happen is, the scariest part is that they're taking away the storage capacity. It was limited. They're taking that away. Anybody can store as much as they want. This year, the corporate, and then they're introducing the contract farming. So as a farmer, they will tell you, hey, can you plant wheat? So everybody will be planting wheat, and they will buy the wheat. And then for the first 3-4 years, they'll buy it at a very decent price. And then they will buy the wheat, they will store the wheat. And the next year, They will tell you not to plant wheat anymore. They will tell you to plant something else. They will tell you to plant carrots, potatoes, whatever they want. And what's going to happen the next year? There's going to be a shortage of wheat. And then they will sell it at whatever price they want to sell it at. And that's how they will control it very well. And for a farmer, you were forgetting a very key point, that farmers also buying pesticides. Every jo bhi dawaiyan, they're buying it from these same companies. So the circle begins not just from when the harvest is done. The circle begins when the seed, even the seeds are bought from the same companies, same corporates. So this is a rare case scenario in the world where these companies, they're trying to dictate. First, they will sell you the seed, then they will sell you the pesticide, then they will sell you the everything else that you need, the electricity and everything else you need to wear at home, clothes, everything else. And then they will come and buy your crop at the price that they want. And then what's going to happen? They're going to go sell it to the Indian citizen at the price that they want. This is a rare case where they're the ones deciding the buying power, and they're the ones deciding on the selling power. So this is the disaster. That's why there shouldn't be no amendments. This kind of revolution, I call it a revolution because it is a revolution, and this kind of revolution won't come again. They will amend for next 10 years and break the backbone. So these bills need to go back. If somebody asks how long the farmers can stay, there is no limit. This is embedded into our souls. And, you got to remember, when a farmer plants a seed in the farm, he has to go at night, water his fields at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Doesn't matter what time it is. And then the crop is harvested and it's taken to the mandi, and the son is sitting for 10 days in the mandi and father's at home. And then the next 10 days, father goes to the mandi and son's at home. So this is a normal routine. If they think that this is going to affect this sitting in border of Delhi is going to affect anything, it's not. It's like, it's a revolution. And that reminds me of, when the real revolution in 1947 happened, Bhagat Singh and all, they sung a very great song. They said, "Sarfaroshi ki tamanna ab hamare dil mein hai, dekhna hai zor kitna baazue qatil mein hai, waqt aane par bata denge tujhe aasma." Maybe that time has come. These people think they're the sky. They want to control every single aspect of our life, and that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And they will have very, very strict revolution. Yes.
Thank you so much. We've got just literally 30 seconds, Harbir, before we wrap up. Actually, we're a little over time. So if you could close the show and then we'll wrap up. And again, I'm going to say thank you to all of you for such an amazing discussion. For those who have missed the show, this is going to remain on our Facebook. We request that all of you share the show, share the clip, get your families involved in this very, very critical cause. Harbir?
So there's so much to say, and I really cannot wait for the next show because we have so much to discuss in very specific ways. But I want to go just summarize on what Amritpal said. So that is what I was about to tell you, that this is not a very black and white issue. This is very complicated. But what's most important is that this reform was necessary. There was a reform that was necessary. The farmers have been suffering for decades and decades and decades. However, this didn't help it. It actually made this much, much worse. I want the listeners to take away from that. This is about corporates controlling, taking away, and this is about profit, taking it away from the individual farmers. Okay. Now I want to get into something very quickly, the ways you can help. I wish I could just provide so much more information, but let's make sure this is some actionable outcomes here. If you want to get involved, follow the Kisan Ekta Morcha Facebook page, as well as their YouTube channel. They have 1 million followers already within the week that they've set up, okay, on YouTube. Number 2, United 6 is on the ground working to support the needs and care for these individuals. Sahita is on the ground working and supporting them. Khalsa Aid is on the ground supporting these individuals. This is not a Sikh movement. This is not a Punjabi movement. This is a people's movement. Please hashtag that as you go forward. Farmers protest equals people's protest. Okay. Finally, please reach out to any of us on the call today. I invited Sheena and Ragini because I know that they're also involved very heavily, as I am. My goal is to really get the world involved and connect the dots across the globe, because this is an opportunity not just to take back these bills, but to reform, to make sure that farming is forever successful and safe in places like India. Thank you very much.
And Shivan, I think you should say something too. You've been part of our panel.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the Radio Zindagi for doing this panel, because conversations like these are not easy to have, especially even during such a time. I want to thank, we have to acknowledge the fact that all of these farmers who are protesting, they know the risks. COVID has not gone away. They know the risk, but they are willing and they're putting their lives on the line so that they can have their livelihood, so that their livelihood remains, because this is about, because all of these farmer suicides, their dignity has lost, and they're losing their lives of COVID as well. But they recognize the importance of these bills. They recognize how these bills are going to make their lives harder. Yeah. And they know that they need to protest. They need to stick up for what is the right thing to do in the situation, not necessarily what is easy. So I just wanted to thank them for starting this conversation, and I wanted to thank you guys for having a forum.
And I want to thank you for being so young to be able to take on such a cause. It's so commendable. And I hope all the parents out there and the young listeners out there, if you're sitting busy playing on video games at home, this is what you should be doing. You should be doing what this young man is doing and spending his time for a great cause. Again, thank you, Ragini, Shobham, Sheena, Amritpal, Harbir, and Shivang for being on the show. Thank you, Radio Zindagi. I'm sure we're going to be back with the sequel on the show, because a lot of people have written that 1 hour was not enough. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.